Good afternoon, dear educators. I warmly welcome you all to the third day of certification program on NEP and digital training brought to you by Teacher.in, Study Apt, and EdChat India. And the topic for today is value development through sustainable mode in education. And to share her expertise on today's topic, we are very fortunate to have one of the prominent school leaders in the Indian education space, our super educator for the day, Ms. Rita Singh, Director, Indapuram Group of Institutions. But before we go ahead, I warmly welcome all the new educators who joined us today for the first time. Let me introduce you to the Teacher Network. Teacher.in is a professional network for K-12 educators. At Teacher, educators can connect with fellow educators, exchange ideas and resources, attend professional development sessions like these, and get skilled, get branded, and leverage that particular brand to find jobs and other opportunities on the platform. Our co-host, StudyApp, is India's largest school search engine. StudyApp school search engine is a powerhouse of school search with pan-India listing that offers comprehensive school information of about 1.6 million schools across the country. We have some ground rules that we request you all to follow for the smooth proceedings of the session. I request all the participants to please keep your mics on mute and your video off so that it saves your bandwidth. We would, however, mute you during the session. I request all the participants to please type in your queries and questions in the chat box. There would be a dedicated question and answer session in the end where you can interact with the faculty and ask all your doubts and questions. And if you face a technical glitch during the session, we request you to stay calm and try joining the session again. We are anyways recording the session and we would be sharing it with you all at the end of the session. Moving ahead, introducing today our super educator for the day, Ms. Rita Singh. Ms. Rita Singh is the current director of Indrapuram Group of Institutions. She is a CBSE National Awardee in 2019. In addition to this, she is also a consultant with British Council and Educational Quality Foundation of India. She is a member of Wiki Arise, a member of District Fee Regulatory Committee, and she is also a mentor with Freedom Employment Academy. She has also been involved with educational programs in the United Kingdom, USA, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, and several other countries. With over 30 years of experience in education, she takes a special interest in running an evening school for the underprivileged students who can not otherwise afford an education. We're delighted to have you on board today, Rita ma'am. I'm really excited about today's session. Over to you.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much. It is indeed a pleasure to be part of Teacher and also Study Apt. So thank you for having me over. It's indeed my pleasure and my honor. So thank you for that. And of course, a very good evening to everybody who's listening me today. I see a whole lot of names, nameless windows right in front of me. Indeed, not a very happy way to be talking, but however, I'm sure as the evening progresses, we will have lots to share and lots to talk about and things like that. I'm happy that we are going through a 7-day certification program and all of you have enrolled for that. I know most of the speakers. I mean, somehow it is said that it's a big country, but then the educationists who have similar interests or similar way of thinking or have want to make a difference are those handful. And these are the handful of people who will make a difference in this world. That includes the people who I'm speaking to today. Because there are so many, I mean, one has been in so many spaces and so many places. When you are giving a lecture, there is a first question that everybody has: will there be a certification, or will there be, or when there is a biodata to be filled up, or there is a form to be filled up. Half of the people do it for the sake of those ticks in those forms. So I hope the people who I'm addressing today are not those kind of people who are just putting a tick, because what you do out of your passion, what you do out of your wish, there's a totally different kind of learning that happens in that kind of space. So a little brief of how our next 1.5 hours are going to be. Let me tell you that whatever 1.5 hours or a little over that we are going to be together, I am going to ride over the entire evening with you, entire this session with you through a PowerPoint presentation, so that this presentation does not become very boring. However, if knowledge has to be imparted, there are certain theoretical aspects that I will like to bring out. I would want all of you to just understand how the entire 1 hour 50 minutes are have been divided. There are about 27 slides that I'll be running through you. And 1, 2, 3 are, of course, let me start sharing that as I'm speaking to you. And in these slides that we have over here, we simply have a little introduction that we've already talked about. I would want you to absorb this while I'm speaking to you. Now, and 4 to 7 slides, I will be bringing out what NAP says related to teacher education, how the teacher education has been envisaged. 8 to 12 slides I would be talking about how the NEP envisages or how they actually see value education. There isn't any chapter devoted to value education. There isn't any special section devoted to value education. However, there is a great learning. If you go through the entire NEP, there are bits and pieces. There's everywhere value education is embedded, and that is how value education is supposed to be. This is how it is supposed to be taught. Why do I say this? Because it is something which is supposed to be taken in. It is supposed to be observed, absorbed, and inculcated. So it is not something that we can take in a question as a question back or in a book and things like that. So it is very important to let's look at the entire scenario as a at the policy level. I have put down certain points here. I'll give you a minute, 40 minutes, 40 seconds to 50 seconds to read this. Okay, now I would only like to concentrate on the ones which are given in red and bold. Why do I do that? Because this is what will make you understand how is teacher visualized, what kind of teacher are we actually expecting to take over the entire education system in the near future. Why must we be part of when we are, it is a pre-service condition, pre-B.Ed and B.Ed, etc. How would you do the B.Ed? How would you get trained to be a teacher? Why must we get into multidisciplinary space? Because what exactly are we preparing the students for? We are preparing them to solve problems. It could be a scientific problems, it could be life skill problems, it could be mathematical problems, it could be society related problems. Basically, this is what we are looking at. Eventually, when a child comes into adulthood, this is what we are looking at. So till we do not have the entire multidisciplinary facet into us in our own personality. So what we understand is if I'm a maths teacher, I cannot be a standalone maths teacher. I have to have, like they used to say, that master of none and jack of all. The fact is right now you got to this era when you have to be master of one and probably jack of all. This is what is required. So when you study, when your B.Ed itself is a multidisciplinary space, and when the collaborations are in variety of subjects, as you see here, psychology, philosophy, sociology, and whatnot, your entire being, your entire personality, your understand entity as an academic entity is totally different. This is what we are looking ahead and looking for amongst future teachers. And the last point I like to bring out very beautifully why they have done it. If you know, there are certain countries where the entire country is running on discipline. I can take example of Singapore, where the whole lot of penalties related to any fault or any faltering that a citizen does. And there is a compulsory 2 years service that you got to render in being a soldier in the army, Singapore Army. What are these for? They somehow feel that in the very early stage of your career, if you give 2 years to something like being a soldier, there is a nationalist kind of feeling that will come for the country. And secondly, the kind of discipline that will be instilled in you will be totally different. If you look at it, there is a PhD entrant. If in the entire doctoral time of your PhD, there would be certain portions of your training in which you will also do internship. While you're doing this, gaining the teaching experience in the particular subject that you're doing your training research in, you have in-depth, on-ground, grassroots level knowledge, information, and experience. And that is when you are actually joining the academia as a workforce or as a thinking tank person. Your understanding of the entire thing is much more. Why I'm bringing out it, each time when we talk about a policy which I picked up from NEP, you must visualize and try to put it in yourself and see what kind of person will I be if I had gone through something like this. Okay, now for the recruitment, these are the things that NEP writes about. So just another few seconds to read this. Again, paying attention to only the points which have been bold and red, others are also correct, but then this is what I want to concentrate on. Suddenly, why there's a sharing of teachers across the group of schools? What does that mean? It means that probably there is a shortage of resource for teaching perfect music, dance, art form counselors, etc., etc., etc. What does that mean? If you go down below, their technical and maintenance staff are also it is being requested that be shared. There could be two situations. Firstly, because this kind of resource is less in India. There was a phase in India when we really did not pay attention to all these spheres, all these domains or all these fields. So we have actually shortage of these kind of people. Second reason is that a typical school does not feel that it is important to hire teachers who would probably be imparting these kind of knowledge to the students. So it's a very, very sorry and pitiable situation where it is foreseen or it is kind of after research or it is understood that these kind of paucity of people who can render these kind of services or these kind of teaching are less. So what does that mean? It means that all those there are people, we also have probably made this mistake. I'm sure the crop of today is resultant of the kind of teaching that we have done, because I consider myself to be from the next generation now. If there is a shortage of these kind of people, there is certainly something went wrong in our teaching or in our education system at large. So this is what I wanted to bring out, and importance of these things. Second thing I wanted to talk about is all those people who are experts may not be degree holders, but if they're experts in certain arts or certain local vocational crafts and other things, they could also be taken on board. So they may not be a typical teacher who comes on roll, but it could be an experts which are hired by the people. And the classical languages that we talk about, this of course is the lost art now. Who can actually understand Pali anymore? But the fact is, there's a huge literature which is existing in Pali, Sanskrit, etc. So it is a very well thought of. Why am I correlating with? I will come back to these slides, or I'll reflect back to these slides later, and you'll understand why I'm highlighting only a few points out of these. Okay, how should your career be? What exactly is professionalism? How do you carry on once you have become a teacher? Again, looking at these two bold statements, formulation of teacher audit or performance appraisal, especially in the government sector, all the performance appraisals were made, but whether they resulted in your seniority or your merit or you picking up more salary or more higher promotions was a question mark. So it's such a lovely change that has come into scene where so many times, especially in the older would be in a school, in a private setup, who would be in a school since very many years, or in a state schools where they would be there, they would always correlate their learning or their extra interest in the work that they were doing. They were very handful, not because they were not really interested in doing the stuff. It was the entire environment was not conducive or supportive of that. Just look at the change that has come in. Your salary, your promotions, everything is going to be linked with your performance appraisal, the audit that will take place. Of course, to draft these entire parameters for this audit, again, a separate board has been constituted already, and this is what NCT, which will have a different name, of course, will be doing it for you. And now, why do I want to highlight the last point is when the NCERT, which is supposed to be the epitome, the paramount organization which is looking into research and training for India, they have also realized that there is much to learn from overseas. The international pedagogical approaches will be researched, observed, brought in into our own pedagogical practices in India. And when your epitome, when your center body is trying to promote this or take it into consideration, it very openly at the macro stage tells us that there is absolutely no harm in learning from one another. You observe any good practice, just take it on, whether you watch it on a Twitter or you watch it on a Facebook or you hear about it in your staff room, or it could be in your evening drawing room conversation. So this is why have I put all these in red? Because the entire enculturation of teacher empowerment is most important for the health, the mental well-being of a teacher. Just go through it for a few seconds. Now, if you have a right to actually participate with your principals when he or she is devising the school goals or any practices or any policies, won't you feel a participant to the whole thing, a serious stakeholder in the whole thing? And you would have the feeling that whatever is happening is kind of my baby. It's kind of my decision, or kind of, oh, I also felt like this. Oh, I also gave my input related to this. So if you look at it, why all these changes? Can't you see that the teacher lot has suddenly is under a focus? There's a spotlight on all the teachers, and it is not for the work related. It is also a pedestal that has been given under him or her. Second thing, teachers' autonomy in selecting appropriate pedagogy. There is a whole lot of flexibility that is coming into scene. I hope heads at various levels also understand this NEP very well, and you do get to exercise your own flexibility in the pedagogical approaches that you select for your own class. This is the kind of freedom that is coming in your hands, innovative teaching methods. And in the state schools, it talks about to reduce the teacher isolation, create a whole lot of lovely collaborative work which should be shared as best teaching practices within a school complex. Celebrate the best teaching practices, share, and the entire teacher communities. I don't know how many of you are all actually on Twitter. If you look at this, there are certain Facebook networks as well. There are whole of personalized learning networks which are vibrant currently. There are ed chats happening. People are giving their point of view. There are certain silent lurkers who are probably just there and reading. There are certain people who are adding to the learning. Learning is almost everywhere. I haven't seen this kind of collaboration in many years that I have been in this education world. So if you are wanting to learn, there are so many platforms to actually learn. So these are the kind of communities which are already existing as and when school reopens and when this NEP is actually absorbed and executed in true sense, then we expect all this happening in our buildings as well. The school complex, I hope you all have understood the concept that they're trying to build up. Multiple schools where senior secondary schools as well as Angalwadis and the primary school, everything would be at one, would be kind of collaborating with one another, and they'll kind of form a hub of learning. This is how they are envisaging, or this is how they have dreamt about it. So, and this is what it is. And when we talk about these complexes, the conference rooms, the grounds, whatever is available to the school or to these school complexes, it will be available for the society to use to the fullest. Now, I have simply, I hope I'm keeping to time. I had planned 20 minutes to understand what NEP talks about teacher education. So why these 4 slides were important till now? These 4 slides tell you what kind of role is visualized for a teacher, what kind of teacher is expected to take over the next generation's education. So first you look at the policy. Now I want you to cut away from there and come to value education. Understand there is no separate section on value education. I picked up all these points across the NEP. Let's go through this. It's an overview is what I talk about. Of course, we all know that it's very important to have ethical moorings and values. There has to be a base anchoring. Ethics and human and constitutional values are as important. We have talked about empathy, which is definitely important. Respect for elders, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit. Why democratic spirit? That is where your role in decision making comes in. Why, whenever there is a participatory leadership, there is always a voice, everybody has their voice. So this is the kind of democratic spirit when you are expecting to be included in these school policies. This is the kind of spirit you have to inculcate among the students when you are trying to bring up these students for the future. When you're having democratic spirit, it somehow comes with a right, but it should also come with a feeling of responsibility, spirit of service, respect for public property. Scientific temper is important to understand, to bring about a problem solving skills among students. Liberty, responsibility, pluralism, equality, and justice. These are the words which somehow we feel that it should come in. Right now, I'm just trying to bring out those points from NEP which talk about how the value education should be inculcated, or what is the oblique reference to the value education that the NEP talks about. This is just a theoretical part for you to have a quick revision and understand what I'm going to talk later and why I'm talking what I'm talking. Deep sense of respect towards the fundamental duties and constitutional values. Everything is being connected with constitutional values. If you, even if like I'm a science background person, otherwise I'm a mathematics person, but the fact is much later in life, I read Constitution. And when I read Constitution, I understood if you actually abide by the Constitution fully, you understand your fundamental rights to the core and you understand your life. And you actually understand a life of a true citizen fully. So that is what is very, very important. We should not shrug away these fundamental duties and rights or these constitution, whatever is mentioned in that as a chapter or as a learning for only political science students or civic students. It is something that must be brought. That is why the multidisciplinary angle, pick up what is important in various fields and let our children, and us to begin with, let our children come to this world with fully equipped. And they talked about bonding with one's country and all, and this is very important to have. I'm not really trying to say that the nationalist feeling has to be built up, but there has to be a respect and feeling of responsibility and feeling of doing something for your country. Till you do not feel for it, you cannot do for it. That is what my take on the entire thing is. Deep-rooted pride in being Indian. Again, it is these points are talked about in one of the news panel discussion also, where they were trying to say that this is supposed to be very nationalist. When we are trying to build up global citizens, why are we talking about this? Who says that you cannot love your country while you at the same time you can collaborate with others and learn from others. Everything can happen hand in hand. It can all, if you have to be a responsible global citizen and have your love for your country. If you look at it, this is what NEP expects. Why am I bringing in ethics? Why am I bringing in constitutional values? Why am I bringing in Indianness? You'll understand that you have to have a right balance for you to actually uh, uh, be a sustainable position in anything that we talk about. Of course, we have been using this word of holistic development since the years and years and years. But what exactly do we understand by this? When we talk about, there are so many aspects of this development that has come into being. There is, when I look at the entire wholesomeness of the of a person, of a child, of a student, or a student to the society, future citizen to the society. What does it actually mean? If you look at NEP, it plans on developing specific sets of skills and values across domains. When we talk about specific set of skills and values, there are certain skills that you can adopt, you can learn, you can pick up. They could be hand skills, they could be brain skills, they could be mind skills, but values are the heart skills that you have to, it doesn't come overnight. It has to be developed over the years, months, years, and generations at times. Now, coming back to what they have written, NEP plans on developing specific sets of skills and values across domains, which will be identified for integration and incorporation at each stage of learning from preschool to high school, higher education. We will talk about it. I'll be taking a few examples in the second half of my presentation. Now there's a curriculum framework, how the entire curriculum would be transacted. The entire thing would be developed and they would bring in the skills and values in the entire process of teaching and learning. I don't know if you have really read the learning outcome that NCERT has talked about already. If you look at it, this has already begun. If you look at the way alternate calendar was created, the way learning outcomes were created, everything is already in the process. Whatever has come down in the form of NEP policy sections and paragraphs and words, you already see lots of things. At least those who have been in the CBSE schools would have already had a glimpse of what is here to come. NCERT will identify these required skill sets and include mechanisms for the transaction, the NCF for childhood. And I would want all the people who are listening to me, if you can think of certain skill sets that this NCERT probably means. If you can just put it down in a chat box, I give you about 15 to 20 seconds to do that. Certain skill set that you think would be is what NCERT is talking about here.
Ma'am, could you please repeat the question?
NCERT will identify these required skill sets and include mechanisms for their transaction in the NCF. National Curriculum Framework is being made. The deadline to NCERT was given as to 2020. Okay, now, of course, they have asked for a little more time because it takes a lot of effort to do that. It is said that they would be identifying these skill sets. According to you, what do you think would be these skills? What kind of skill do you think your students should be developing, which is required for them to have a holistic development? If you could just put down certain skill sets in the chat box. Okay, now how do we go about it? How does NEP visualize that we are supposed to go about it? Of course, we got to learn the importance of doing what is right. How do we learn? We will talk about it later. There is a logical framework that has to be created. How ethical decisions are to be made. There should be case studies. There should be situations where there are ethical dilemmas that a child comes across. What decision does he take at that point of time? I don't know if any of you have gone through, we have this Ramakrishna mission. They have come up with whole lot of these kind of logical frameworks and whole lot of such a situation where ethical decisions have to be taken. So when you are put in those situations and when you are made to take these decisions, that is when your mind goes through that, experiences that, all kind of dilemmas, whether I should do this or should I do that, and all kind of questions that come in your mind. Eventually, after processing all these questions, when you come to a solution, that is when that solution may be wrong, it might backfire on you later, but whether it's a wrong decision or right decision, whatever are the implications, also teaches you something. So these kind of situations, we have to, what do I say? You got to put students in these kind of situations. It could be case study related. It could be in a discussion mode. It could be in a worksheet mode. We got to throw these kind of situations to our students for them to really understand, experience, and be actually ready for such situations. And it says that at various stages of life, there would be situations which will be on the themes like cheating, violence, plagiarism, littering, tolerance, equality, empathy, which will actually make a child understand what moral values actually are. And of course, conducting it one's life will be most important. And when you later on, when you grow up and when you are in a situation where you yourself have to practice these ethical practices at work and later on, that is when very gradually, like in the previous slide I mentioned, that from the kindergarten years to the higher education years, throughout there will be certain frameworks, logical frameworks that we created that will become a sample for teaching how the ethical decisions to be taken to the students. And now coming back to what we already have in form of our scriptures. And what we already have been talking about, Seva, Ahimsa, Swachhata, Satya, Nishkam Karma, Shanti, sacrifice, tolerance, diversity, pluralism, righteous conduct, gender sensitivity, respect for elders, respect for all people and their inherent capabilities, regardless of background, respect for environment, helpfulness, courtesy, patience, forgiveness, empathy, compassion, patriotism, democratic outlook, integrity, responsibility, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So many words, all intangible, all are something which we can feel, see, observe, not touch, not write. I can at max write a word which means integrity. I can't really write what integrity is all about. How do we inculcate all these beautiful words which are extremely important for a wholesome personality, for a just and honest citizen? How do we inculcate? It's so far it seems that I'm talking big. I have picked up NEP and I'm speaking to you. How do I actually make it happen? This is what we are here for, right? So if I had not really summed up what is there in NEP, NEP kind of gives us a glimpse of how India is visualized, how the citizens of India are visualized, how the students of today and tomorrow are visualized, what shape or what kind of teacher do we visualize and what kind of teachers would we need to make it happen. That is why it is so important to bring out all these points which I have brought out from the NEP. Now I'm on to any questions so far, or I'll take the questions in the end if you want. Any questions that we have so far? Fine, I'll continue. So what we have over here is we have understood how the value education has been visualized in NEP. We have understood what kind of teacher empowerment is what is in mind of the policymakers. Now, how do I connect the two things? For me to be a correct teacher and also help develop value system among students. How does that happen? Next few slides are something that you will say, okay, what's new? What's new? Now, I'll give you certain example in this. For example, if I am a Delhi girl and if I have worn trousers and I'm walking on a road, one condition. Condition number two, if I'm a girl of a rural area where I have never seen my mother wear anything except sari, and I'm to get married and I'm married today, what do you see me in? If you see me in pant and the same, I'm the very same girl. I'm at two different locations. The perspective is context is totally different. What is right? What is wrong? Can I attach this with value? I do not know. What is right? What is wrong is always contextual. Now, what is anchoring? What you learn first, you believe in that strongest. If in the initial years, I had picked up this kind of information that this is what a married woman is supposed to do, or if I pick up this information, this is what a citizen of this village is supposed to do. If I had a good example in front of me that if I had to begin with seeing clean dustbins and clean streets, I would have begun to believe that this is the way to be. So this is what anchoring is. Whatever I have learned first, you believe in that strongly. Even later, what is this first information report? FIR word you would have heard in the police system. A person who goes to police first, puts a complaint first, is always believed to be a right person, and rest of the investigation happens with that in the mind as a premise. So this is what anchoring is, when you are anchored at a thought in the very beginning. So what we teach to our students or our children early, that becomes their anchor. So we as teachers, and of course the parents as well, we as teachers have a great responsibility to see what we are teaching. Are we teaching correct values? Because what we teach them in the early years becomes their anchor. We have always been saying walk the talk and things like that. It is very example. That is why the kind of job we all are in, it is not just a job. We got to understand that there are certain exemplary behavior that we all supposed to have. Does it come with a cost? By living this kind of life where others are looking at me and emulating me and watching me, and I am an exemplary person in front of them, am I able to live that life? If yes, then I'll be a teacher. If not, then I'll probably take some other profession where my behavior does not impact more lives. So identify, are you in a profession where you want to continue and you want to face that hardship of people looking at you, people watching you, people emulating you? You got to demonstrate the values that you're trying to preach or trying to inculcate amongst the students. That's the most important part for a child, for a teacher. Now, this is something I would want to talk a little more. What does this mean? Case studies, I feel in my own life of teaching of 32 years, or later on mentoring, I've realized case studies are the most powerful tool for explaining any situation or explaining any, especially those kind of skills or those kind of traits which are intangible, which are picked up gradually. Recognize and reward positive demonstration of values, prepare case studies, share within school, between schools, in the cluster. Each time I'm talking about cluster also, though I'm assuming that the people who are listening to me, some of you are from state schools also. If it is all private schools, then it probably not holds true for us so far, unless NEP also includes the private sector schools and creates clusters. Let's see how it will unfold. So what I'm trying to say is there are certain systems, like I have seen, let's go to very, I don't know how many of you are teaching smaller classes. We have in certain schools, we have the system of having a board in which there are stars of students' names, or there would be certain qualities written like honest, discipline, neat, all those traits are written, and in front of that child's name is written. So what are these? These we are trying to put, make star out of those students who have demonstrated certain good values or good traits. So this is kind of a report card. I'm not really talking about putting up a report card of a child for its values, but appreciation is definitely called for. When we take up a case study of say Ram and Shyam, and whether I call it Ram or Shyam, or I call it Mr. X and Mr. Y, or I say two brothers or two friends, and narrate that story that we observed that probably happened in my class, create a case study out of it, spread it within the, share it within the school, and probably this kind of story, the entire administration, how is it taught? I am an MBA as well. The entire 2 years of business administration is generally taught. Of course, there are few economics related facts, and there are certain concepts are being taught. But I would say 60 to 70% of it is through case studies. They will pick up an example of some industry. They'll pick up an example of some company which failed. They can take up an example of some company which really did well. They will take an example of a startup which rose within few months. They'll take an example where it probably did very well for first 2 years and that it came down. So all these companies and how they did well, and when you study them, you realize without really going through that journey yourself, by scrutinizing these case studies, we learn so much. So it is very important that we also, where will these case studies come from? Who are the people who are witnessing these children and their demonstration of their values? We are the ones, right? We are the ones who are in the classes in front of them. So when something like this happens, take it upon yourself as an educator to pick up these kind of case studies, put it down in form of a say paragraph or a narration or a short story. And if you add a few questions after that, it becomes a very good teaching tool. It is spread across the school. Whenever a teacher wants to discuss something, she could probably discuss this for 5 minutes in another class. You know, what happened this, and what do you think you would have done if you were in a situation like this? So this is the kind of tool I take it, which I mean, somehow I don't know why case studies are only taken up in higher education. It can very well be used in the school education as well. And convert your strategic goals. My goals are, what are my goals? Let's go back to this. No, let me go back to this. Okay, my goals are, I want to inculcate Seva, Ahimsa, Swachhata, Satya, Nishkam, Karma, Shanti, this, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. This is my goal. Now, this is a huge goal. How do I achieve it? You convert your strategic goals with respect to value education into implementable bit-size morsels. Morsels means those small bites of roti or small core or little helping of food that you're going to put in the child's mouth. It's a huge goal. It looks like intangible, unachievable. But the fact is, if you convert it into smaller goals, smaller bit-sized morsels which a person can take, absorb, and digest fully. This is what I am. This is where your role comes in. Why didn't I straight away come to this? Why did I spend 45 minutes or 42 minutes or 43 minutes discussing what does NEP say? We are a part of academia. We are the part of those mentors who are going to groom tomorrow's India. So till we do not know where we are headed, we got to see the big picture. And then we come down to grassroots level. We implement what we have understood, and we take those small actions, small action points. We decide and we execute them. And how will that come through? That will come through classroom techniques, your classroom transaction. What transacts in that small room? And as of today, if I look at the online teaching, what transacts in that small window? What actually happens between you and your students will decide whether those big words, those big strategic goals that I had with respect to value education, could I actually achieve? Does it look that it is achievable? What do I do with my students? What small acts do I do? What small activities do I do? What exactly happens between me and the set of children that my head teacher has trusted me with? What do I actually do with them? Look at these. So there are certain, I thought I should not just say you should devise, you should do, you should bring out these changes. I have actually myself listed out few for your, I would say I would give a glimpse to how it is achievable, and see all these things very carefully and understand. And your home task is also, your assignment is also going to be related to what I'm going to discuss now. Okay, now there are certain outcome-oriented classroom activities I'm going to talk about, and just absorb and understand how it can be done. Whenever we are dealing with the difficult concepts, please build up scaffolding. Give a, you understand what scaffold is, right? You must have seen buildings being created. When there is building, the outside you see those bamboos which are attached, and they are kind of outside structure that is created so that the people, the laborers can climb over it and can reach the higher areas. So that is called scaffolding, building upon one over another. So whenever there is a difficult concept, please scaffold and support. I'll give you an example. What it actually means is you are building from smaller, simpler concepts into more complex concepts. Suppose the children have phobia with maths problem sums. But if suppose there is a problem sum related to somebody going to shop and buying something. So instead of I saying that Suresh went to shop and bought 100 so and so and gave 20 and sold it for ₹20, what is the profit? Instead of giving the entire number in the beginning, if I just read it like a story, all these examples are, some are from a smaller classes, some are from the bigger classes, whatever classes you people are handling, you can probably put it in that context. So how do I start my story? I said there was a small boy, Suresh, who went to the shop, bought certain mangoes, came back, and he bought those mangoes to sell because he was short of money. Then he decided to sell since he needed certain money for himself. So he decided he will sell these with little extra rate added to it. So this, remove all the numbers, just read out that math problem sum without any numbers, then bring in the numbers. This is a small example of how it is important to deal with difficult concepts by scaffolding and supporting the child, and then eventually making him reach where he's supposed to reach. This definitely brings in more clarity. Inbuilt time for reflection. Reflection is metacognition. I will give you an example by using snowball toss technique. Suppose, I don't know how many of you are aware of Socratic method of teaching. In that, you yourself find by far the best, through this technique, you yourself find hole in your own theory. Suppose you have decided, suppose there's a question that comes to you, you devise an answer to that, and you pause for some time and you find flaws in your answer yourself. So when you have devised certain thing and then you are yourself finding flaws in it or holes in it, and then you yourself come out and patch those holes up. So this happens with the reflection. And when metacognition is involved over here, you are learning how to learn. So you have yourself found out what went wrong with the way you gave the answer or you found the solution. What were the loopholes in those solutions and how those solutions were how can you better your solutions by finding out. This learning is uses critical thinking, and that when you bring in the critical thinking, reasoning, and logic, it itself brings in a better mental health for yourself. Why? Because someone else has not corrected you. It is your own critical thinking that you've applied, your own reasoning you've applied, and the logic that you've applied in correcting your own answer. It's a very, very beautiful moment. It's a very, very beautiful feeling. And it results in not just you getting the answer right, it results in understanding how do you learn better, and having that very good feel about yourself, that you are the ones who have found the answer, and it results in a better health condition. It is a wellness kind of situation that you have for yourself. Now, there is a snowball toss technique when you want a person to speak. This brings in a lot of self-awareness. At times there are certain techniques, like suppose you hold a wool ball, or just crumple a piece of paper, put it in your hands, and then throw it on someone, and that person has to throw it on the second person. It's like a passing the parcel. Whoever gets this, you devise a game. It could be your subject related game you can create, or it could be just an exercise of self-awareness. For example, you say, whoever I throw this ball to, that person will tell us what makes him love himself more. Suppose it is tossed on me, I say, I love myself more when I'm able to do a session rightly. Then I throw it on, say, Varun, and Varun takes that ball and says, I love myself more when there are 20 participants come to the session and go back very happy. Things like that. So these slow ball toss techniques does not really only help in self-awareness, it also gives a lot of people to speak, a lot of people to say what they want to say. And whenever we are in a discussion, whenever we are in a classroom situation, it is very important that every voice is heard. This is one of the most important thing. Certain times people do throwing ball technique, this kind of technique. People also take up, say, a pencil or a pen or any longish kind of thing which can work as a mic, and they make it as a talking piece, and they move it around. It could be as an opening circle time or a closing circle time of a class, because it is very important when there is a technical topic which is being taught. It is not always that a child responds. So all those people who do not respond when tough topic is being taught, it could be when you are say opening your class. It could be just a talking piece. You circulate among the students and say, when this talking piece comes to you, you have to say, it could be what I loved about yesterday. It could be as simple as that. It's very important for you to help everybody voice be heard by everyone. Okay, speed meet. This is a very beautiful technique in the classroom which you can utilize. All these quick, interesting techniques are very helpful in value development. How do we actually make people talk? For example, what do? I make a bigger circle, I make a smaller circle. Okay. And inner circle, for example, moves clockwise and the outer circle moves anti-clockwise, or one circle can remain stationary. To each person you have to say, this is very good tool for facilitating talk, basically to initiate talk. Everybody, how do I become a better person? How do I reflect upon myself? How do I look within? All these help. Suppose while you're talking, you can give a task like, okay, one good thing that a person who you're speaking to has and what he could improve upon. I stand in front of somebody, and after a certain time, after once I've spoken, I move to the next person. Then I tell one good thing about that person and what that person can improve upon. I'm just giving you one example of these. Speed meet can be used for our academic classes also. Since I am today talking on value education. So I'm trying to build up the social emotional skills, and I'm talking about all those kind of intelligences. I'm trying to give examples from how we can develop values among students. However, all these techniques that I'm talking about, it could be used in just about anything. It could be in your maths classes for all you want. Then there is something very beautiful called students critique through candies. Suppose I need to evaluate, say 10 paintings, or it could be 10 technical projects that students have created, or it could be code that they have devised or designed or whatever. So how do I do it? Suppose there are 10 laptops or 10 posters or 10 whatever things that I need to audit, or I need to analyze, or I need to see. What we do is we simply place all those 10 things which are need to be evaluated and give 2 candies to each child. And each child is supposed to put candies on their most favorite and most beautiful ones. And remember telling that the participant, that candies, whoever you put the candies for, you got to tell. That child has to reflect, why did you put that candy? So it should not be to my favorite friend, things like that. So when there are 10 pieces and all students have put their candies, suppose one particular project has 10 candies. So by default, it is like a peer assessment. And don't leave it at this. You also analyze. The entire analysis of the project must happen by the teacher, and the reflection must happen by the student. It could be the student who placed the candy on the project. It could be student who made that project, and even the student who probably got 2 candies or no candies. Let that child reflect. Don't shy away from those situations where child might feel bad. Oh, there are no candies on my project. Absolutely not. Give him a chance to analyze, reflect, understand, even learn from his failures. This is what I would have to say. Then, of course, I don't really think I need to speak anything about positive affirmation. We all know that there is self-love involved. There is esteem involved. Then there is a situation where I love myself, I'm happy about myself, I learn more. However, to build this, how I can give you another example. In smaller classes, even till classes 12, this actually is successful, this kind of affirmation. But generally the bigger children they shy away from doing these kind of facts. They don't want to get involved in these things. That's why we shy away. However, I feel even if you try with a stage 11 or 12, grade 11 or 12 student, it will definitely be appreciated. Suppose I have 2 jars in my classroom. One jar is empty, another jar has got a whole lot of candies. I have this jar of mine. It could be candies, it could be marbles. Marbles, if you feel they're going to be a little dicey to keep over there, to be dangerous, you can just put toffees. It can also vanish if you have indisciplined students. But nevertheless, I think we should try our best. What you could do is, you could tell that this particular jar is filled up with candies, which are the good deeds. Each time when you do a good deed, which you think of, from your own side that yes, it is a good deed, you pick up a sweet or candy and put it in the other jar. So this is how we track our own, identify our own good deeds. Even if teacher does not notice it or your peer group does not notice it, there is a positive affirmation coming from you for you. At times, I suggest, especially in the smaller children, when a person is doing something like this, there is no harm in asking that kid, oh, lovely, so you're putting a candy in the other jar. What do you think this candy is for? What did you do? If a person says, oh, I did my homework today. So that thing has to be corrected there. Homework, I thought, was part of a job. We got to do our homework. That homework is for us to get better. So, and other one says, okay, I did it because my friend who's sitting next to me could not really do the sum well. So I taught him this sum and he carried on. Now he can do it himself. So yes, this is certainly a good deed. So these kind of small gestures that we have to associate with learning. If a child understands this, child will also understand what is being good. And it's very important that we show respect and interest with the body language. When a child speaks, we lean towards the child. These are what we do even if it doesn't automatically comes to us to do, sometimes we do so that our children can emulate, can follow, can copy, can see the demonstration and learn without being preached. So all these things are very, very important. These are small social skills. These are small emotional skills that result in very mental well-being of a child. And all these things come when there is love, when there is connect, and all these things are, then there is always learning. That is what. And of course, how can we even not talk about human connection? Human connection is the most, I think, talked about, yet it still has to reach a little higher level of understanding, little higher level of execution. I think a simple act. Now, how do I say I must have a human connection? A small act, a small activity, I will say, even if it is, let's say, a worksheet on industrial revolution. You have talked about all those pros and cons of industrial revolution. What are the features? Everything you've talked about. In the end, even if it's say for 9th standard or say 10th standard, I don't mind putting a line in the end of my worksheet saying that, how is my internal weather clock today? Is it sunny, cloudy? You can give a whole lot of emoticons and let a child circle any one of the emoticons. So instantly, after doing all those theoretical aspect of industrial revolution, analysis of how the life was at that point of time, suddenly child suddenly connects with himself and connects with you as a human being, where you put a personal question. Did you have a beautiful day yesterday? Even if it's just yes and no, he kind of remembers that day. He goes into yesterday, and suddenly a smile or a sadness comes on his face. Even if he had a bad yesterday, there's a human connection to the entire question. So these kind of little small human connections, if you can build up even in your worksheets or in your activities, it'll go, I think it'll be very, very beneficial. And then humor in classroom is something I really wanted to talk about. We are, I think, got too used to be very serious teachers. We take ourselves too seriously. We take ourselves, I think, bit too seriously. I will escape from here and just come back to you people for some time. Or okay, let me just give you a little brief of what this humor in all classroom is all about. Or let me come back to you and ask you whether do you really feel this helps? I would just take few people, 2-3 people who can unmute themselves and give me any examples where they have used humor in their classrooms. And if yes, what do you think you achieved by doing that? Yes, I can see one hand up. Yes.
Good evening. I'm ma'am, taking the class to the second, like I sure there will be some difference between somewhere like if they won't listen properly. I'll just do a joke, a crack. If I do, then they'll be come back to the class. Like they'll be listening and they will reply. That makes a possibility that kids are students are there back to the class.
Okay, so it helps you to draw children back to you. Suddenly they are all ears and they are totally paying attention, and somebody has written it is a refreshing feeling. It suddenly refreshes the entire mind. Anybody else who would like to add to this? Because this is something builds up, I feel this is something which builds up immediate human connection. So any anecdote that you can relate makes it lighter. I can see those comments. Yes. Anything else? Draws attention. Yes. Anything else? Absolutely. It very correctly brought out by it draws people's attention. That means it brings students instantly. It makes students engaged instantly. They are total attention of yours, of theirs is with you, and you can, this is the moment when you can teach them what you want to teach them. So drawing attention, like you said, and very good. And it gives a break from a serious topic. So we totally understand why firstly, I believe it builds up a human connection. It builds up a community. The moment you laugh together, you somehow have that sense of belonging. You suddenly start connecting with one another. It breaks all kind of barriers between amongst people, and it brings back all those beautiful memories. Whenever you're talking about laughter moments, there are better memories or good memories attached with it. When I can connect the good memory with my student, with my learning, I'm sure my learning will be better, because it creates a common psychological bond and it builds up a better rapport between a teacher and a taught. And that is what we are looking for. Definitely, then it results in bonding, it results in better learning outcomes. So why are we not using this? Why are we taking ourselves so seriously? The moment like you said, that lightens the mood, and when things are too hard, when there is a heavy topic going on, serious topic going on, heavy learning going on, it is like a all these minor stresses which are there around our classroom. If we bring in a humor, it tells everyone that, oh, these minor stresses are not such a big deal. I mean, so if you as a teacher, if you are modeling the ability to laugh at yourself, I think this teaches very many good lessons. It tells students that you're not taking yourself very seriously. You are one of them. You are with them. You are one of them, and you have capability to laugh with with them on yourself. I think there's a whole lot of learning in this. It suddenly brings in a great human connection. So all these values that we talk about, we got to demonstrate those values. We got to, it doesn't naturally come. You should portray in the classroom as if it is very naturally flowing in. However, it should be strategized. Like I told you, even the bigger strategic goals must be ridden upon, they must be riding upon smaller actions of your classroom. That is very, very important. So all these things you got to connect, understand, and when you go into your classroom, when there is a, I don't know if you have noticed, when there is a this kind of a joke being cracked, it's an unusual connection that comes into scene. And what is creativity? We are trying to talk big. Let's bring in critical thinking. Let's bring in creativity and things like that. This unusual connection that humor brings in is what creativity is. What is creativity? Creativity is solving a problem in a very unique manner. How do you solve that problem creatively, or in a creative manner, or a unique manner? When there is a unique association that is built up in your mind related to that problem. And when there are multiple such associations, when you are able to connect all these multiple associations and combine all of them, take that learning and solve a problem. So the same thing becomes a problem solving skills. I totally believe in this aspect that humor brings in creativity. Creativity definitely brings in the problem solving and critical thinking skills. All these things are positive associations among the students that gives a lot. So this is what I had to speak to you all about. It is for not just for the understanding how value education to be imparted, whether that education will be sustainable or not. Sustainable will only, anything for that matter, will only be sustainable when it becomes way of life, when it becomes part and parcel of your daily living. You, at times it is said that even if you are not very humorous, you bring in humor. You think of an apt joke, practice it, do enough rehearsals, may be a wrong word, but there should be enough preparations for your lessons. Your lessons should look impromptu. It should look as if, okay, you're speaking from the heart, but you must plan well in advance. What you're planning, I don't know how many of you have read the standard procedure which has come up related to the opening of schools. At so many places it talks about well-being of a child, making him that child settle in the new class, in the from homeschooling to. So if you look at the bigger picture, everybody is looking, wanting happiness. Everybody is wanting to be stress-free and enjoying the moment. How does all these come to be? You got to be comfortable with yourself. You got to be comfortable with, when I say comfortable with myself, that means I have me skills. I understand myself. There is a self-awareness, and then I can manage myself. And so there is a self-management. Do I have we skills? Do I understand society? Do I have social awareness? Do I have social management? Do I have relationship management? So all these things are so very important for somebody to be not just himself, be a wholesome personality, be a very comfortable company for the second person who's right next to him, or the co-citizen of the country, of the world, of the village, wherever we are coexisting in. It's so very important. So this is what I had to say. I just wanted you to understand and connect the NEP policy to actually what will happen into the classroom, so that what is supposed to be achieved, we are able to achieve. This is what I had to say. I will open the floor for the questions. I'll request you all to put up your hands, and then we can take questions from you. Ms. Ravan, do you still want to ask something, or is it the old hand that you have put up? Or if you people are comfortable writing it down in the chat box, I'm okay to pick up questions from there. Very correctly, Vaishali has written, it creates friendly attachment. Very correct. And it is very important for people to know, students to understand that you mean well for them.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Rupa, I think you have put up your hand.
Yes. Ma'am, then what is the significance of subject like moral science, which has already been taught for so many years?
I'll tell you
what. Does that continue?
Rupa, I don't think moral sciences should ever be taught. In the schools that I'm heading, moral science as a moral science subject, we stopped teaching it 10 years ago. Instead of that, we have brought in small such the activities that I narrated just now in my last segment of session. These kind of activities, we have listed out 100, 200 of such activities, and we throw these activities into our classroom activities. And at times there is one-on-one session of mine with teachers where I ask, what activities did you bring in to inculcate values? And then that teacher tells me, this is what I did. Okay, what values does it bring in? So there is a whole lot of brainstorming that happens when we have our HOD meetings, when we have our subject committee meetings. There is no book and no notebook for computers for value education, moral science that you're talking about. Moral science and value education is one and the same thing. A school head can decide to impart value education through worksheets if that person decides to. However, these kind of worksheets will only be beneficial if we have case studies. Question answer session, what did Rama do? Why did he go to Ayodhya? And I mean, these kind of questions do not impart any moral science. I'm sorry to say that.
So it will be more like a experiential learning?
It is supposed to be that way. It should be case study based. It should be discussion mode. It could be, for example, you know what, there is something called wait period. Even in my maths class, suppose I'm a maths teacher, I'm not a value education teacher like most of the conventional schools have value education teacher and they have this teacher and we don't have that way. Progressive schools do not follow it this way. I, as a maths teacher, in my class, what they would do, they would sit and do the maths lesson. And suppose there's a question that I've asked. Suppose I've said that where does the directrix of cone lie? Suppose in this particular figure. Suppose this is my question of maths. I do not take answers immediately. I always give a pause. This is called wait period. Wait period of just about 20 seconds or 30 seconds does wonders As an educationist, you have to understand what does it do. Firstly, it brings in little poise. If I look at the behavioral thing, it brings in poise in a child. He's not bubbling unnecessary and trying to give an answer immediately. Secondly, it builds up communication skills. How? What he has to tell the teacher, he formulates that answer in a correct manner and revises it in his mind before bringing it out from his mouth. Thirdly, he is able to, whatever he's thinking, it is being processed in his mind. That processing of mind results in better critical thinking. So all these things which are small acts, come to think of it, what did I do? I delayed my class by 20 seconds, getting that answer to me by 20 seconds. But it so very beautifully gave me the 3 skills in that child. So over and over again, if I keep practicing this, these kind of values that are developed. I can see Bhasha also putting up her hand. Bhasha,
Yes,
over to you.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Nowadays, different subject books, that means maths, in science, English also, they are having a value-based question section in their book.
Very correct. Very
Yes.
correct.
My question is, will NCERT will give specific syllabus to us for value education or not? Because we are not getting any books in specific.
Bhasha, how can I, have you understood values, what actually values are? If you go back to the slide of so much, how do you quantify? How do you put honesty in a chapter? How do you put integrity in a chapter? It is case studies I can understand, group discussion I can understand, talking about a story, telling a story about it I can understand. But how can I bind moral education or value education or moral science or a good human being or global citizenship? How can I put it in a book? Come to think of it, no.
My niece studies in a school. They are having value education as a topic or a subject, and they're going to write their exam on value education also, and they're giving us the books. That's
Bhasha, I will not like to comment on any one particular school. However, this is my take on value education. It has to be inculcated and it has to be demonstrated by the mentors in small ways and very strategically. It should seem as if very naturally being presented. However, it should be very strategically devised and decided. This is my take on any education for that matter. Yeah, thank you, Bhasha. Over to Dheeraj.
And also, I believe that it starts from home also.
Very true.
Our parents are the ones, the first teachers
to
bring about those values.
Absolutely correct. Having said that, if in case you feel there is a void over there, we should not stop from doing our work, right?
Yes,
Dheeraj. Yes, Dheeraj, you wanted to say something. Dheeraj, I think you want to ask.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, now.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes,
ma'am. Actually, you said that you don't have computer notebooks in your school. So I would like to know why.
Okay, we don't even have computer books. I joined this group about 12 years ago as a principal of one of the branches. Today happened to be director. In 2012, I grew to be director. But the year I came in, the very first next year, I removed the notebooks. 2 years later, I removed the books. Now, how are we doing it now? Our social science class, suppose there are 5 classes of social science. Okay, 4 classes are theory in the classrooms. 5th happens to be in the computer lab. And in that computer lab, there is a social science teacher and there is a computer teacher. And there is certain research work happens or presentation skills are taught or how Excel sheets in maths classes, how Excel sheets are prepared or how do I search and create a Microsoft document through it. So computing skills are taught, but not through books and not through notebooks. It is through
on a practical
practicals
basis.
in the classroom and it is integrated with the subjects. You get me? That is how we do it. And
That's
it's
really
been
great.
7-8 years now since we are
Oh,
doing
that's
this.
wonderful, ma'am. I think
And,
this is what
and ma'am, do you
is
think
followed abroad.
Very many schools in India also. It's not just abroad. Uh, Whoever, I think you got to take a plunge when you take these kind of steps. We are always fearful of what parents would say. How would they take
Yes,
it? If we
exactly.
actually speak
Parents.
to them, express how your logical mind, why you're doing it. It is what is computer? It is a tool. What is a pen, what is a screwdriver, what is a mixer, and what is computer, and what is smartphone, what is mobile. What is a mobile? When mobile comes to you, of course it comes with the literature, but how many times do we actually read the entire booklet that comes with mobile? We hardly ever read that entire booklet. We
Very
just
true.
go on and start using it, and as we use, it's such a user friendly thing. Of course, computer is little more technical. It has got programming and all, but till about say ninth standard, it's just about input devices, output devices, what it is. Why must you want to make your child read all those theoretical things, right? No, I feel it's of not much
True,
use.
ma'am. Exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, they're more burdened with this way of education. Theoretical, it's
Yes,
like,
yes.
it's
Even
burdened.
even I feel that. Even I feel that. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, ma'am.
And
So, how did the parents agitate, or did they support you? How did they
see,
reacted to it?
no, see the process has to be very slow and steady. Okay,
Mhm.
it should not be. I never reacted overnight. Like I said, I joined this year. Next year I remove. When you're removing something, then we supplement it with a worksheet. Books,
Okay.
notebooks went away. It was supplemented with the worksheets. There shouldn't be any void felt by parents or the students.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever learning was happening before that, learning
Hmm.
should continue, and
Hmm.
then it should be scaling up one step up. I
Okay.
learned, now I also know the practical aspect of it.
Yeah.
If my this change in policy did not result in little more learning for the student,
Hmm.
even then I would have remained there.
Hmm.
Right. If I'm upscaling or changing, there has to be a change in the learning outcome, which happened.
Hmm.
Yeah. And at each step, you must involve parents. We are not here. See, come to think of it, we as teachers and they as parents both are wanting the same product. No, they just
Hmm.
want their child to grow up to be a very happy child and
Hmm.
productive citizen for the world. When
Hmm.
both of us are working towards the same objective,
Hmm.
why should there be any altercation between the two lot?
Hmm.
We have to
And ma'am,
understand one another.
I think this will solve the problem, because there are many parents who come to us and say that, ma'am, there is no practical class in computers.
Yes.
Students don't have hands-on computers. So I think this the major problem which we have in our school as an administrator. I
Hmm.
think that will move.
You're very right. You're very right. And you know what? When a subject teacher gets a support of a IT teacher also in her class, it's like
Mhm.
two teachers are taking that class. Even for teacher, it reduces the boredom because it's a hands-on class. It's a research-based class. I mean, we certainly bring in research in at PhD level or at MEd level and things like that. These small researches, whether they are through search engine of computer or later on by collecting data and analyzing it, it brings in those research skills amongst the students, which is so very important for a child to be a self-learner.
Mhm. Mhm.
There is somebody,
Ma'am,
Priyanka is,
yeah,
yes.
ma'am, how can I be connected to you after this? Because I want to know. Actually, I'm working as an administrator, I mean, principal.
Yeah.
So I
That
would.
the coordinators will let us know about that. We will
Okay.
request little later when the time is over. We will request Varun to do all these answering for us. Like till
Thank you.
then, there is somebody Priyanka who's written, "Ma'am, up to which class have you not included computer as subject?" I would say I have included computer in all classes. Not included is not the word. Not included computer. I've included computer from the KG as well. I have one computer kept in each class. When a student finishes his or her work early, we tell that child to go onto that computer, and that child can play with certain educational games. So computing is there from kindergarten till class 12th. I would say till class 10th. In 11th and 12th, only those who have taken computer, C++ and Python or whatever as an elective subject, only those are touching. So it is absolutely everybody is doing. If you're talking about notebooks, I don't have computer notebooks in any class. Not a single class has got computer notebook. Now, not a single class has got computer book. We have computer notes, we have computer practicals alone. That is how we handle. And it is called ICT integration classes. We do ICT teaching, but in ICT integrated classes, they could be your social science class, they could be your science class, which you take up in your lab, computer lab. The class moves to the lab, and in the lab, science teaching happens through their own research work or creation of a document or a PPT or whatever tool we want to teach to the child. This is how it happens.
So, ma'am, then you are having the computer in the timetable, like social science will take, who will take when means like
in the timetable we'll call it Monday. This is social science period. Tuesday this is social science. In suppose on Thursday 7th period we will write ICT integration social science. That means the child has to go to computer lab.
Okay. Or I thought that is a buy-on. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Anybody else you want to ask me? That's what NEP insists. Somebody has written practical experiential learning. These are the very basic experiential learning. I won't even qualify this as experiential learning because it is a tool. I take computer as a tool, and I feel any tool, for it to be used correctly and fully, it has to be handled with hand and used. So to be able to do, somebody has written, ma'am, gadget should be taught practically. Exactly. I take it as a gadget, which is of course an intelligent gadget, which has got it has got a central processing unit. So it processes the data as well. However, it takes in and takes out, processes it. So this is what I feel. That is why it is very, very important. And experiential learning, I like to say, though I'm deviating from the topic which I was supposed to speak on, when I am making a child experience what I'm talking, if I can actually bring in a cycle into my classroom and show how dynamo of my cycle, the light of my cycle lights up when I pedal the cycle, then they correlate the mechanical work changing into the light energy. This is what I would call as a experiential learning. So it is much required. You're right. Any other question?
How far are field trips included in this? Because generally the trend is like now in our school, when we ask the management that we want to take the children to a field trip, like we are teaching agriculture and geography, so we want to take them to the agricultural college. The reaction is, oh, we can combine it with the picnic. Whereas the this thing of a picnic is completely different. We don't want picnic combined.
Absolutely right in a way. However, I would say what's wrong in that. I have always gone other days when people would say that don't mix work with pleasure. I have all my life, even if I look at my professional front and my domestic front, I've all along mixed it up. I've always done that. I've always carried work home. I've always come back from home, left my work, seen my boys, looked after them, sent them to football field, and again sat for work. So I don't think life should be compartmentalized. If I can do picnic along with my field trip, nothing wrong with that. Let the person, your supervisor, your principal, call it whatever. If it is a fort that you're going to, who stops you from giving a worksheet to children a day prior? That is pre-class activity.
Yes.
And let that sheet be carried by the child and filled up while he is on to the trip. When he's looking at those placards or all those that stone where the information of that fort is written, let that child copy it down from there and let him fill up this. Tell that child that this answer to this sheet you'll find while you're doing the field trip. And at the end of it, you sit and have khana and have picnic also. I mean, there's absolutely, we can always mix all the things, right?
Yeah, there you have a point.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, ma'am, can you please list out some activities to teach values? As you mentioned, example as case study. Yeah, for example, the dilemmas that a child has been. For example, it could be 11th grade child who has decided to bunk next class, and mass bunking students have decided. However, he had certain maths problem to be solved from students. Everybody decides, okay, kal koi nahi aayega. Now what happens? All these students are at home, and this child comes in and gets his problem solved and goes back, and then the next day this child is boycotted by his friends because he broke the peer group's rule, saying that we all had decided will not come to school, why did you come? So what goes through in this child's mind? Did he do wrong? According to his peers, he did wrong. How first pose this problem to the students, and let's see what all have to say. Let them process this particular situation in their mind, and let them understand whether whatever the child would have done. Then later on you say what actually child did. Of course, what child did should be the ideal answer, because you are presenting this case study as a sample to good situation. There could be bad situation case studies also, failure situation case studies also. In this, I will probably solve this problem by saying this. You know what happened? The next day, the child said that I am not from I am from a poor background. I cannot afford tuitions. I could not have found answers to these questions on my own or from my tutor. So I had to come all the way to school to get my problem solved. Henceforth, in case any one of you out of my friends can help me over this, I will listen to you. So there are situational. So like I said, something is right or wrong is in the context, isn't it? So should I be doing this or not? Again, it is in the context, right and wrong. So this is what case study I meant. There could be a case study of you could take from a smaller classes. For smaller classes, you could say that there are two children from 4th standard, and one person had not finished his work and the other person helped out and did his work. So, okay, let's discuss this out. And after that, the other child got full out of whatever, some situation you create. And that person says, okay, let's discuss whether this has been a right step or not. Yes, for short-term goal, it was right. That child, it seems that it is right. In short, if you have a short vision, you will feel that this was a right decision because the other child got scot-free and did not get punishment. But in the long term, what happened? Long term, what happened? That child understood that this is also one way of, he picked up that habit of cheating. If today he picked up from you, you wrote from him, someday he got from another. He did not become a self-sufficient person. He was, you have made your own friend not a self-learner, but a dependent learner. So there are whole kind of situations. So it's like a comprehension passage. Case studies are like a comprehension passage where you pick up a situation where something happened which teaches right and wrong. And then you analyze. But before giving out the right answer, which you feel is right, always listen to everybody. And when you're listening to everybody, again, there is no right and wrong answer. It could be a situation when somebody's mother had fallen sick. There was nobody at home and he did something where the situation demanded. So, okay, fine, you did it in this particular situation, but in the long run, it will probably not be appreciated and will not be taken well. So all these situations are there. I think I generally respect time. I hope I've answered most of the question. I have read from the chat and whatever you asked me. With your permission, though I don't really want to go, but I think with your permission, over to Varun for the feedback.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. In fact, I brought in a lot of interesting ways of imbibing values among children. We are extremely fortunate to have you today, have you join us today and explain some brilliant pointers on scaffolding and Socratic method of teaching. So I don't find a lot of teachers actually, discussing Socratic method, but it's one of the most beautiful ways of learning things. So it's wonderful that you have brought that out, ma'am. And the most important pointer of the day was about how important it is to establish a human connection So just some time ago, I was reading a couple of in LinkedIn posts about a white hat junior teacher, accidentally hurting the confidence of the child, and because there was more pressure on that. So this brings to the same point where how do we build the human connection? Because at the end of the day, the relationship between a teacher and a student is probably the most precious one, and something that has a phenomenal effect throughout the lifetime of the child. So thank you so much for yes, thank you so much for bringing all of that today. It was one of the most interesting learning sessions, and I personally had a lot of fun attending it. So once again, ma'am, thank you so much for taking your time out and sharing your valuable knowledge and thoughts with the educator community.
Thank you, Varun. It was entirely my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It is indeed a great, very, very interesting interacting with all of you. And thank you, especially the ones who spoke and asked a whole lot of questions. And it really gave me time for reflection. And reflection always results in better learning. Thank you so much. I also had a learning session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, dear teachers, I have one last announcement to make. So, I request you all to please fill the feedback form. The link is being displayed on your screen, and I've also shared it in the chat box. And you can follow Rita ma'am on Twitter. Her handle is mentioned here. Please share your thoughts if you're on Twitter. You can share your thoughts and tag us and let us know about how you felt during the session. You can tag us teacher tweets and @chatindia, @chatindia, and Rita Singh ma'am's Twitter handle is mentioned. So please share your thoughts and let us know. Please fill the feedback form so that we are
we are not able to click the link. So please make.
Okay, link able.
We are not able to click.
I put it in the chat box.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
And I will be sharing assignment for today through teacher, right? Varun, I'll send the assignment to you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So
simply have to think of certain activities in the fields that I'll be mentioning in the assignment. That's very simple.